Hi there. I just presented a talk at the conference of system science, and the community was so nice that I thought to myself, okay, I have this old talk about consulting and Palantir, and it's only in German, so for a few people it might be interesting to have it in English, so I just recorded now here in English for you. It is about consulting. And I think because I found my perspective on power hierarchies pretty general and applicable to such a topic as consulting, I thought it might be helpful to understand that Palantir, in my vision and my definition, is a consulting industry, is a consulting firm. And yeah, let's get in. First of all, let's motivate. We know for a fact that established knowledge contradicts social action, right? We know we have problems with inequality, we have wars, phosphor crisis, antibiotics, climate change, desertification, 6-PPD, tire wear. We know microplastics are everywhere, and we are in the middle of the 6th mass extinction, and somehow nothing changes, right? And I claim it is because we are organizing ourselves in some kind of huge bottlenecks that suck up all our work and all our goodwill and transform it into these kind of polycrises. We can observe, we have a lot of stories about that we tell ourselves and that we tell our society and environment. And the society tells itself a story what it wants. And we know that it contradicts reality, right? And we have to ask ourselves, if you are a psychiatrist or like a medical doctor or even a police officer, and you come to a murder scene and you ask like witnesses and stuff, would you actually take everything they say for granted? Or as a psychiatrist, your patient, would you think everything the patient is telling you is 100% true? No. You would actually know that what comes out of the patient is a result of an underlying pattern. A result of an underlying pattern the patient is not conscious about. And you, as a scientist, you want to reconstruct the underlying pattern. And I think this is also what comes out of my other talk. The underlying pattern is basically what I call the domination fractal. And I think consulting is a very good symptom to make it to basically drive the point home I'm doing with the domination fractal, that we need to rethink how we think about organization. And can we? So and I think basically we need to ask a question, very provocative. Can our power hierarchies, our big nation states, all the bureaucracy, even the big firms, the corporations, Amazon and stuff, can they actually purposeful make decisions at all? I'm not kidding. I'm asking the question, can power hierarchies solve problems? And I claim a lot, and by this I mean almost everything we know and we can observe is just marketing. I think we need to rethink about what we think is true about how we organize ourselves. And I think it starts with this picture. Every hierarchy, every power hierarchy is somehow looking like this, right? And to me, we can interpret our structures as data processing pipelines. I think from bottom to top, there is signal processing going on, and just because we know these nodes gather information, we know already that there has to be data compression, right? And data compression always means if there will be cut out information. And we are holistic beings in a complex environment with a lot of information that is hidden and even not inside of the data pool, for example, of a nation state, right? When I when my daughter came to life, right? the nation state is not taking all the information about my daughter. No, it's just like coordinates, weight, name, date of birth, stuff like this, right? But not like the full information of her body, of course, because why? Why would a nation state do this, right? But the thing is, I say the data compression of all these hierarchies are making these hierarchies dysfunctional in a complex environment. And the thing is, we are living in a complex environment, and that's why we need to think about what happens with all the data that is lost. And the data compression, of course, goes with the hierarchical rank. This is very easy, right? So you could think of the bigger the pyramid, the more data compression. And I think it almost looks to me as like someone who did a lot of numerical implementation with programming. To me, this looks already as if I could fit into some kind of gradient descent in this plot here. And also, like, there is serial and parallel working and worker groups going on here. So this looks as almost as if someone would implement an algorithm on top of actual human organization. And you need to think about what is implemented here, right? And to get an answer, you just need to check out my other talk where I talk extensively about what I think is optimized for here in this algorithm, in this kind of algorithm. But let's state that whenever there is signal processing from top to bottom and bottom to top, it is in a game theoretic sense doing some kind of Nash equilibrium. So it is contingent that the nodes behave according to game theory as what they are given by the offset on their payout matrix, right? So it is contingent that people do not perform informal cooperation on the level that people are on the same proximity. No, they are usually told to only communicate with below and above nodes in their network. And this is why all kinds of bureaucracies suck that much, just because of this kind of network state, right? And I think the classic use case problem where a hierarchy can solve problems are static, very predictable, and even they only work if there is no needed feedback into the power hierarchy from bottom to top. Only then, I claim, hierarchies can solve problems. But the problem is, of course, this is not what we observe in reality, right? We have a dynamic problem. It is unpredictable because of determined chaos in emergent complex networks. And of course, actually, there would be a huge need for feedback into the power hierarchy from bottom to top. And the thesis of this talk is power hierarchies do not find solutions for problems. Not at all. They can simply use force over those that they have power over and force them to pretend as if there would be found a solution, the hierarchy works, and everything is good. I think this is what power hierarchies do all over the planet. And I would suggest you guys, if you know an example where power hierarchies actually work, and then think for yourself, is it the workers that do all the work, basically giving care work for the system? Or is it actually the hierarchy? I would claim most of the times hierarchies do not work. It's only the people on the bottom level that do actually important work. And I mean, if we all know it, and I think a lot of people know, you are sitting inside of some kind of corporation and you all know the drill. There will happen stuff. And a lot of you know the fact that then some boss comes in and says, you can't write it like this. You need to tell another story. Not maybe lying, maybe not exactly lying, but you have to do marketing if you give information out of the pyramid. And we all know it. So why would adults think, if they experience it for themselves, that any other corporation would do otherwise? I think all nation states, all big power hierarchies are doing this. And we know for a fact from Ash conformity experiments that people will do stuff they know exactly is wrong, just in order to keep harmony in their social peers. And I mean, this is well established, right? And the idea is basically power hierarchies are dysfunctional. It's not working. How can they actually get better? And I think for this is the use case for consulting industry. And fun fact, the consulting industry grew about 900% in the last, let's say, quarter of the century. And the global GDP only grew by 200%. This tells you a lot about if the global economy market system might already be in saturation. And all the profits that come out are only due to inflicting more violence on the network, but not because there are actual more, like, let's say, neck entropy harvesting steps that get more efficient or something like this. And I think the most important thing to understand is that the interface for control bodies in general are stories and narratives, right? Big power hierarchies tell actual stories. And this is how it is working. It is an informal kind of data interface. And because we are human, we love stories, and that's all. And I think another thing for the consultant industry is that CEOs and consultants have like an incentive and a self-interest in high share prices, right? Big companies are at the stock market, and whenever something works out very well, they are usually in part on like getting money out of it when everything works. For example, cutting jobs is always a good idea, just because in the short run you make profits. And if you have like a conflict of interest here, this is not a problem. This is not a problem in the short run. And I think this is what happens here. And so if you take a look at the data, the empirical data, you can see that the financial bubble from 2008 was basically caused by consulting industry. And yeah, it is an established fact. And so there is a lot of big players, you know all the names. And now the question is, how exactly does consulting work, and why are people still believing the hype, even though they should be better? They should know better now. So first of all, I like to suggest you the YouTube channel of Anna Bocker. I liked her material very much. I'm hugely inspired by her and what she actually told me with her videos. And so let's talk about a little bit of around neoliberalism. By clowns, for clowns, you know all the drill. Privatization is good. Everything else is tragedy of the commons, so to say. This is what capitalists will tell you, even though I think we can only, in the game theoretically sense, observe what they call a tragedy of the commons if there is a huge difference between people that own stuff and people that use stuff. But this is not what capitalists will tell. By the way, Margaret Thatcher stepped down as Prime Minister 11 years later, and the amount that got into funding of consulting industry was just by a factor of 40 greater after her stepping down. So in the short period of 11 years, it is a factor of 40 of money going into consulting. This is what all the neoliberal clowns will do. Even if they say otherwise, they say something like less state, less bureaucracy, less all of that. But basically, they privatize all this stuff, and then it's still not working. Because guess what? Every big company is still a big power hierarchy, and they all suffer from the same data compression problem I just sketched already. And yeah, under Reagan, basically the same thing. And basically, consultants concluded back in the days that states need to spend more money on consulting. What a surprise, you would say, because yeah, what other would they say, right? And I searched for data about this like factor of 10 in the consulting industry growth, but it is hard. It's only an estimation because back in the days we had not such a thing as the consulting industry block, right? So the measurements are not that sure, but it is almost sure that it is around about factor of 10. And yeah, so you can search for yourself if you got better data pools than me, no problem. And yeah, here you see basically the gap. Let me skip this. The next thing I want to talk about is there is a paper from 2012, and this already tells that maybe there is a conflict of interest between the top of the pyramid and the consulting industry. For example, could it be that consulting makes some kind of addiction to the CEOs and the management? Could it be that they even manufacture problems that in the end they solve somehow, just in order to make good feelings for the upper 0.1% of the pyramid? And this is even in a paper from 2002, this idea, right? And it makes total sense if you think about it. In Germany, we have a very infamous politician. I think now he's not a politician anymore, but he used to do a lot of what, like in the United States, do classical, what they call capitalist liberal clowns, right? They are basically neolibs or even worse, anarcho-capitalists. And this guy is so funny because he made a career in politics, but as in the age of 19 or something, he was in German TV telling that school sucks and that he wants to be a consultant back in the days. And this is funny because, yeah, he's only talking bullshit since then. And I think the marketing behind consulting is very easy. The target group is the executive suite, right? It's the managers, it's all the people that have no clue, but they are in charge and they are powerful. And the idea is to provide internal information and data to the consultants, and they somehow just need to make the management good feelings. That's all. Usually with a lot of PowerPoint karaoke, with a lot of so-called data, right? Diagrams, sexy stuff, sexy graphics, whatever. Just good feelings for the managers. Because remember, all the important work is done in the bottom layer of the pyramid anyways. Not in the manager upper 0.1%. I would say that you could think of all hierarchies as some kind of parasites that live by the bottom. And even though I think Marxists would agree here on my point, because this is basically the whole point of Marxist critique of capitalism, right? And yeah, I state that the default to solve problems inside of power hierarchies is corruption. This is something you would say is informal, and it is beyond or behind protocols of like what is legal inside of the companies, but corruption solves problems best. And if you do not have corruption, which requires connections, for example, if you have two big power hierarchies, say a nation state and a big firm, or two nation states, the best for them is to agree on some kind of narrative and then solve their problem by corruption. If you do not can do it by corruption, and another idea is just you force people to perform in your way. This requires power, right? And I'm basically stating here, this goes for like everyone that is affected by the power hierarchy at some point needs to obey, and at some point needs to perform as if the power hierarchy is working, right? And the most extreme case is, of course, like, you know, from communist dictators such as Stalin. They are basically doing this, right? But I claim somehow all companies are pyramids, so this pattern should be the same, right? And also I claim it is almost scale invariant. That's why I have in my other talked about the domination fractal. I state that domination as a kind of property is an invariant pattern, and it emerges over our interactions. But yeah, let's go further. I think the expertise of consultants is that they that there is somewhere in the consultant industry one expert in a field. He has networks, he has a good network, he knows people, he has like idea about some topic, he is an expert in a field, right? And his job is just to get contracts. His job is to land big fishes, and then that's it. The higher management is there to basically order all the small grind lords such as him here, the senior consultants, the analysts, and the junior consultants and the interns to perform all the PowerPoint karaoke and stuff. So at this point, the expert is not important anymore. The expert was only to get the contract. And yeah, the seniors and the juniors, right? They are important. Their skill set is PowerPoint pitch meeting karaoke to the max, right? All the aesthetics, all the buzzwords. Because remember, the target audience is the managers. It's the big old white dudes that have no clue about whatever. They only know money. They have no clue about digitalization, about math, about STEM. It doesn't matter, right? They are only sitting there, big fat and in suits. That's all. And yeah, for example, in the COVID pandemic, there is huge documentation about what the consultant industry was doing, right? Many of the most prominent government pandemic efforts have been stuffed with battalions of McKinsey trademark dark-suited young MBAs, right? And this is the young MBA over there. Studied some bullshit, international management, economics, neoclassical theory, you know all the drill, all that kind of bullshit that happens to be whatever. But if you can perform as if everything works, right? Fake it till you make it. And yeah. This makes someone like him expert in disaster management and pandemics. This is what happened, right? And as I told you, bureaucracies, big hierarchies, they suffer the most if their problem is dynamic. And what I mean, a pandemic that comes out of nowhere is super dynamic, right? And that's why if there is a lot of panic in the management, then consulting fixes, right? It fixes the problems, or at least it does so by creating a good narrative. And yeah, there is a lot of reports, for example, right? 30 billion of public money from the UK government into some kind of, consulting industry. And in the book, The Big Con, they even say the consultancy was earning 1.3 million per day from contracts. And junior consultants that were bought in rarely had specialist expertise, right? In some relevant area. They had nothing. They just were spamming people and even like, of course, they have bullshit titles, product owner, product manager, whatever. And they basically had no idea and even were reducing the efficiency of some kind of pyramids just because they were everywhere and talking shit and asking for data, asking for protocols, asking for them to do stuff, right? And in the end, just make the bureaucracy even more inefficient. And yeah, in Germany, the same stuff. The government paid at least something like 80 million for consulting in the COVID pandemic. And even though the government wanted to keep this a secret, they wanted to keep it a secret. And yeah, another thing is that the consultants industry, similar to like what I think economists, mainstream economists, neoclassical theorists and stuff, they do, they perform as if they have academic background, right? For the example, there is a Deloitte University. It is just called a university. There is no peer review. There is no academic background. There is nothing. This is just like how to make PowerPoints better, but they call it university. And there is different institutions like this, and you know all the Hayek Society, you know what the Montpellier Society is about. And basically, I claim mainstream economics is nothing else, right? They are sitting in actual universities, but they're performing as if. And they hide all their esoteric behind bad math. That's all. And if you are interested in this, just ask or read a book by Steve Keen. he does a good job in like explaining where exactly all that stuff suffers. And there's a super funny consulting Reddit. And this is where people actually talk, do the real talk, right? So for example, I just started at a Big Four company. I'm finding that my actual job is nothing like what they said I'd be doing. I'm not sure if this is just my position or not, but I feel like all I do is make different PowerPoints that are glanced at and never used again. Is it with you guys as well? And someone said, yeah, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. And another one was like, it all seems like completely useless. Everyone spends more time creating the deck, so the PowerPoint pitch, right, than actually coming up with a solution for the problem. And when a solution is found, it's not data-driven, it's just surprise and stuff. A solution is found and then data is cherry-picked to fit the hypothesis. Yeah, of course. And someone wrote under that as a comment, don't tell him, guys. Tell me what? That your job is completely useless and you do the stuff companies don't want to do. One at the first good offer. Yeah. We say don't tell him. Yeah. That's what it is about, right? And why do clients still buy into our bullshit? This is a good comment, right? You never set up a TV or home entertainment system for your parents or elderly relatives and leave them a step-by-step instruction on how to use it, but they still call you because they can't figure out how to change the volume. It's like that. Yeah. And this is the part with the addiction I was telling you about, right? Management never was capable of solving problems. This is my claim. That's why they are basically addicted to someone that tells them a narrative and makes them good feelings until the power hierarchy collapses anyways. And yeah, I mean, understanding economy is a thing. I already told you, to me, mainstream economists are like a church, like a cult, but not a scientific community. And in Germany, we have a lot of people that propagate capitalism works, economics is great and stuff. Even, yeah, I mean, you don't know these guys. This is okay, but in Germany, one is chancellor, by the way. And of course, no one knows and can explain how markets function. I know, but of course, that's why, because I know how complexity works. It is a big diffusion of responsibility. No one is responsible in the end, and they have no clue about game theory, even though they use the word game theory a lot. Mainstream economics are also not working with complexity. They are neglecting it by definition. And yeah, I think economists, so mainstream economists, spread esoteric rambling with no scientific ambition. And if you say, more of what are you talking about? I mean, I have a background in science. I'm a physicist by training. I worked like 15 years in engineering as a programmer. I know math and stuff. And now, since a few years, I'm getting into economics. And I know that neoclassics is bullshit, okay? I worked my way through, and I'm 100% sure on this. This one here, you see on the bottom here, this one is a very good example. I love his calendar motives. This is in German. It says, if someone asks you to keep a secret and then you tell others about the secret, it might be that the person who told you the secret will never again tell you a secret because they lost trust in you and faith. This is the kind of genius behind the life coach bullshit that this entity is actually propagating. And he has 2 PhDs in history, I think. And yeah, so my claim is, we have incompetent management, right? And it wants to shift responsibility because the whole story about management is that they take responsibility. But I say hierarchies are perfect tools to diffuse, to make it more difficult to have actual responsibility. And this is what we can observe, right? And especially when the hierarchy needs to have unpleasant tasks. So people actually in the management need to perform layoffs, or they have industrial scandals, they have corrupt things going on, and it comes out. So this is also a use case where consulting is perfect, right? And this comment is good. They are paying you $600 an hour for nothing, right? You are a fresh MBA, you have no clue about whatever. Yes, you get them coffee, walk the dog, take the blame for whatever you think makes them want to sign the next SOW. Yeah, and that's exactly what is going on, right? And another example, BCG, Boston Consulting Group, did a huge, tremendous job at the most expensive hospital of the world. It's not working, but it was super expensive. And because there's already people there's already people dying, I think, they misestimated the costs by a factor of 5. It costs almost $6 billion. It's not working. They created even a bullshit buzzword. They call it value-based care. It's not working. And right now, they still get over 6 years, 22 million just from the state money. Because it says in the contract, right? And the state can't get out of the contract and everything is fine. This is how consulting works, right? Doing nothing, getting money. And another thing is the big opioid crisis is basically caused by McKinsey. Documents, it is a well-established fact now. They even pled guilty for this. Same stuff with, like, all the drill. Back in the days, big tobacco, and e-cigarettes now, all these industrial I think it is a big success in advertisement. And as I said, advertisement and consulting, they go hand in hand. And yeah, here they pled guilty already for the whole opioid crisis, and no one, and still, right? The thing is, there is still going on that consulting is working, and it never stops to surprise me how little so-called adults are actual adults, especially when they are working in big hierarchies. It's basically some kind of mass psychosis to me. This is what it looks to me. People can't tell they are serious. It's not. And yeah, another thing is, of course, Puerto Rico. And I think big consultant industries, the most successful, they want to aim for the cash flow managers. These are the optimal targets, right? Multilateral corporations or nation states, because they basically have the control over central bank money anyways. So why not consult these big hierarchies? And this is where Palantir comes in, I think. They were founded after 9/11. The main customer from the get-go was the US administration, right? This is perfect. This is ideal. It's a big bureaucracy. No one knows what to do. Everyone is in panic. But everyone wants to have a piece of paper that says, yeah, you are working on the right thing. Good job. And Palantir also has a huge advantage because the whole marketing lies about big data analysis. They say we have artificial intelligence, and it already. Artificial intelligence is very good for big data analysis. It finds correlations inside of data no one would ever find. And another good thing is that war industry is with the mentality of whatever it takes. And this is perfect for Palantir because then you can suck out a lot of cash flow. Perfect for pretending everything is fine, right? And as I said, this is the use case. This is what consulting does. And this is what all hierarchies do. They are pretending everything is fine until it's not. And yeah, as I said, in these exponential trees, you have a huge data compression. You have complexity reduction, which is basically manifested in the data compression, right? Search function in big data is what AI wants. It's a perfect toolbox. Palantir convinces incompetent idiots in the management that with some kind of premium pitch and with some kind of good marketing for boys, for best for old boys that have no clue about anything. And this is what they are doing, right? You can check out the Palantir homepage for yourself. It is full of marketing bullshit, right? It is so heavily relying on toxic masculinity, on basically apocalyptic masculinity or petromasculinity, and it's full of this, right? And in Germany we have Dobrindt, which is he is responsible for like security issues of the state, and he likes Palantir, of course, because, yeah, he doesn't know shit. He is an incompetent boss, and he loves it. And yeah, this is a headline from like a year ago, right? He loves it. And now we come, because we are talking about Palantir, you can't go away. It's about Peter Thiel. Everyone knows it. He is touring very successful with his psychosis about the Antichrist. By the way, it's only projection, as always. He behaves as if he is the Antichrist, but he wants to tell you otherwise. Completely idiot. But we already know he's a proto-fascist. He wants like to cut out everything that looks as if it is democracy. I wouldn't even say that we are living in democracies, but even this is not enough for him. He wants his dystopian fascist regime going on. Right now it is a well-established fact as well, with his like networks and his leaks going on in the last 2 weeks, I think. And you all know the drill as well. Competition is for losers. I mean, this at least is honest. I think every capitalist knows this. He's just speaking it out loud. And yeah, even there was a German headline about someone that was working in Palantir, and they say, no, Palantir is not doing what it wanted to be usually, or what it originally wanted, and now it's only like creating the dystopia. And also Palantir is of course trying to get hands dirty in everything that is data-driven, everything that is state-driven, everything that has a lot of data from bureaucracies. And for example, it is heavily invested into the NHS in England, and also in some kind of American healthcare pipelines and all that, right? This is just because getting hands in different kind of partitions of the domination fractal, so different kind of power hierarchies at the same time, enables you to a lot of corruption. And this is what I was telling you earlier, right? Palantir wants to dominate governments, not to consult them. And I think it is doing a perfect job. I think this is what will happen in the not that far dystopian future we are heading towards. It wants to get access to all the decision-making spaces of different population groups, right? People have decision spaces, and they are formed and they are constrained. They are contingent by the monopoly on violence, which we call nation state. And I think if Palantir gets more and more access to more and more different combinations of different population decision spaces, it can achieve higher and higher profits, so to say, by combining different physical levers we are constructing as these kind of pyramids we are using, and we are building them. So I think the Palantir solution works as a black box, and it creates dependencies. States become dependent on consulting. And yeah, this is a classic example that I already told you in the other talk. You can be a victim of violence without even noticing it, right? And violence is defined, for me at least, as the reduction of decision spaces of entities. And I think Palantir can come up with completely new exploitation topologies up until it has the monopoly on everything. And yeah, this is what it wants, right? Ownership about nation states of different kinds, and then solve the problems. Not actually solving problems, causing more problems, but while it is causing problems, profiting out of it. This is what domination wants anyways, and that's why big hierarchies are not working anyways. And I think we can see in the topology of this kind of interaction that it is basically a rectifier, right? If the result of everything or anything that comes out in the future, it is always because consultant works, because power hierarchies work, right? Not just because people are working in the bottom layer, no. It's always because of, whatever, the power hierarchy is such a good administrator. But if the result is bad, and this is what usually happens, it's due to some individuals. It's due to some free will of some agent. But, it is what I say, there is no responsibility in these kind of structures. I think it's a common pattern, not just in like nation states or bureaucracies, but I think overall everywhere where you have a power imbalance, right? Because power imbalances are the main contributor to enabling information opacity, and it enables double standards. So you could even say the amount of double standards is a good measure of how big the power imbalance is actually, right? How much of power gradient you can find. And I think I don't trust in nation states. I don't trust in any power hierarchies. I think they all will collapse at some point. But before they do, they will create a lot of suffering in the biotope. And we are part of the biotope. And we are heading towards the polycrisis. And I think the only way to get out is not taking part as much as possible. I know we are dominated all and it's super hard to get out, but the only way is to find ways for informal cooperation with your peers, not within the economic system and not within some kind of administration that takes your data and analyzes you. And yeah, this is a lot, right? I know it's a lot, but I think we can't get over it anyways. And remember, big power hierarchies are not solving problems, I think. They are only forcing everyone that they have power over to act as if they are solving problems. I think that's all the trick. And yeah, we all have been brainwashed that it is not like this, but I think the data speaks for itself. And our narratives are basically coping strategies, but not a reflection of what is actually going on, right? The underlying structure is what I call the domination fractal. And if you are interested in this, just check out my other talk. I will publish it as well here on the channel. See you and bye-bye.